Thank you very much for the warm welcome. Very honored to be here and share with you and acknowledge that we are guests on traditional unceded territory of Algonquin people. Also, a big thank you to CFHI. This is really a privilege to be able to be here and share in this setting. And we've already done some cross-learning and exchange of information with our BC friends at our table. We're pretty excited to talk further about how they're dealing with opioid strategy and crystal meth and exchange some information there. So the learning exchange has begun. Over to you, Shane.
I do want to say that we do bring greetings from Treaty 6 territory, also a traditional homeland of the Métis, and welcome to all of the colleagues on our committee that are watching on this live stream. And that's our Adult Addictions Advisory Committee. So going from the left, you have Nicole Schumacher, who's a manager at our long-term treatment facility in Saskatchewan. Colleen, she's a patient family advisor. And then there's Tracy, who's the director of mental health and addictions. Jen Skaken, who is the manager of our detox, a brief and social detox. Myself, Charlotte, who's also a patient family advisor. Garnet, another advisor. Brenda, who is the manager of the Opioid Assisted Recovery Center service. And Greg, who is the manager at our main outpatient addiction services center. As you can see in our committee and stuff, we have pretty good representation from everybody going on there, and that's something that we really strive to try and achieve.
Got a few people missing from the picture, but hopefully they're watching, and we acknowledge you here today too. So just a very quick overview, Saskatchewan Health Authority vision, mission, and values. The context is that patient and family-centered care is central to what we do, and at the Health Authority and the foundation for our values. So just wanted to point out that it's built into our core mission, as well as just to reiterate, these are leadership principles taken from Accreditation Canada. And as you can see, they serve as a basis for what we do on our Adult Addictions Advisory Committee relating to the importance of co-design and partnerships, not simply having advisors offer feedback on what we do, but being part of co-design.
So on our advisory committee, like I said, we try and achieve parity in both gender, age, every demographic that we can try and cover. We try and achieve a ratio of 2-to-1 for patient family members to mental health and addiction services staff. We operate with a co-chair model, so both Tracy and I co-chair our committee meetings. It works really efficiently and allows us to have a good view of everything, I guess. Recruitment process. So the members of our Addictions Advisory Committee have all received services in addictions and want to give back to some degree. Everybody's at different spots, and all that we do is have a brief interview process with them, an orientation about some of the terms of reference, some of the language that the health authority uses. And we recognize our advisors as experts in their field and on that subject matter, and we reimburse them appropriately. We acknowledge them appropriately, and recognize everything that they do contribute and make them feel a part of, and like they are steering the meetings. So the advisory council member roles, I guess for our patient family advisors, we ask that you attend meetings regularly and promptly, same as we expect the professionals who show up at the table. And we communicate to the chair or co-chair when you're unable to attend. Simple heads up, and nobody really looks at you wrong for not being able to make it. We ask that if you offer to, that you complete any assignments or work that has been assigned to you, and encourage others to participate by sharing your ideas and information freely and seeing them put into play. As patient family advisors, we're always applying innovative thinking to all the stuff that we contribute, and we serve as an ambassador, and I want to add an advocate for patient and family-centered care. I've actually heard a few times here, one of the things that we do in orientation for a very specific reason is discuss what being an activist is and what being an advocate is. And everybody on our committee is there to try and make our health authority run more efficiently, just be better. We're not out there to slam anybody, the health authority, any organizations. We're just there to try and figure out a way to work better together. So my story, I guess, with getting involved with the health authority was sort of by chance. I just was shoulder tapped by another patient family advisor and said, "Hey, Shane, you might like this." And I was like, "What is it?" And they said, "Well, go check this out, phone this lady." So I did. And she said, "Come in for an orientation." I said, "For orientation for what? What am I doing?" I was just told that I might like this. So I went in and I had a chat and I found out what it was all about. And that was sort of back in the time when these committees weren't really out in the public. People didn't really know what was going on. They were sort of just forming. Everybody was getting their ducks in a row, basically. And it wasn't really put out there that this stuff was a thing. But I got involved. I had been through addictions, mental health services in Saskatchewan. I had an extensive history in healthcare, many different things from surgeries. I was a sick kid and stuff, so I had lots of experience in healthcare. I guess it started for me, like, alcohol was introduced into my life really early, about 2-3 years old. And I drank on a weekly basis until I started stealing alcohol from my parents, 10, 11 years old. I was drinking down in the basement by myself. I grew up in rural Saskatchewan. I didn't have the opportunity to just go outside and play with kids. It was always an ordeal. It had to be pre-planned and very deliberate. And then you had to get your parents to agree to give you a ride to go to your friend's house. So I spent a lot of time, wanting to be like my parents, wanting to hang around with my parents, just be a farm kid, right? And, they 70s in Saskatchewan on the farm, weekends, parents would be playing cards with each other around the table, having some drinks. I was that little kid wanting to hang around with your parents. They'd give me a little glass of rye and Coke, and off I'd go, and I'd fall asleep. That led to an addiction, me stealing alcohol, and that isolation of being a farm. I never really felt like I fit in. So it made me feel lesser than already. I felt like there was something wrong with me when I was stealing alcohol and cigarettes and drinking in the basement by myself in the dark. I started realizing, as a kid, I was seeing that something was wrong with me, and I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I didn't know how to make it stop. I had no clue what was wrong. I just knew something wasn't right. I knew that I wasn't supposed to be like this. Kids weren't supposed to feel how I was feeling. And I tried committing suicide. The first time I tried committing suicide, I was 11. I stabbed myself in the chest. I never really got any help for that. Basically, a cuff upside the head, told to smarten up. That was it. Within the year, I thought would do it better. And again, I was never in this to hurt anybody, to hurt myself. I just wanted things to stop. I wanted to go away. I just knew that this was not how life was supposed to be. I didn't know how to fix it. And that was the only way I knew how, was just to make myself disappear. 12 years old, within a year of trying to stab myself in the chest, I hung myself. And that was a turning point in my relationship with my family, with my peers. I had gotten some severe rope burn on my neck. It turned into a scar. I was being made fun of, between my friends and other kids knowing what was going on. I was being ostracized at school and left out. And my parents, out of their own embarrassment. And, as an adult now, I get it. It wasn't right, but I get it. you know, people would see this kid with rope burns, scars around his neck and stuff, and they'd point me out and say, well, yeah, look how stupid he was, look what he did to himself, you know, he thinks nobody gives a shit about him and stuff. And it was self-preservation and protecting themselves. You know, that led to just feeling left out. I felt like I couldn't even commit suicide right. I felt like I couldn't even make myself disappear, let alone all this junk that I was feeling and going through as a kid. I started being mad. I started hating people. I started disliking people. I didn't like being around people. I isolated myself on purpose. I was a super bright kid who didn't give a shit about anybody or anything. People would, you know, come around me, whether they were trying to be friends or even just asking me questions. I was ignorant, rude, I was mean, I was pushing people away. I was getting in fights at school. I was in grade 9 and I was pulling alcohol for the grade 12s. And 16 came along and I ended up hurting somebody in a fight and got charged with attempted murder. My life turned around. I was basically kicked out of the house. I wasn't their kid anymore, kind of, if you know what I mean. I guess they were ashamed of me. I spent the next 20 years couch surfing on the streets, never really having my own place, short-term rentals, bouncing around, allowing my addictions to fester, getting into drugs, being meaner, hurting people, and just being a jerk, really. And you know, yeah, that continued on, and I just continued every day. I continued, and I got to be where I was drinking 40 beer a day. I used to have to drink 12 beer just to think about doing anything in the morning. I was always so sick, and then I was always doing stuff during the day that allowed me to continue drinking throughout the day. How do I know 40? Because I used to have to make sure that I had that much money every day, and it was expensive. I started selling drugs. I got heavy involved in gangs. I was out in BC, some major intense gangs going on out there, you know, but it suited me because I was able to get my drugs. I was able to fester in my own addictions. I was able to be this mean guy, and people loved me for being this big, tough, mean guy. And I just existed. People started going missing in BC. I remember one instance, a girl was hit in the head with a hammer, pulled out of the river over a $20 drug debt. Cab driver rescued her. Guys were getting sexually assaulted. That was a thing in Prince George. My higher up, they actually made a TV show about him, Billy Moore. He was murdered. And this is all getting crazy. Again, I found myself in this situation. I was like, you know, I was only doing this kind of stuff out of convenience because it allowed me to continue using and just being messed up. But I was never in this to like die or to get hurt. Yeah, I had tried committing suicide, but that wasn't to die. I just wanted to go away, right? I didn't want to get hurt. My higher up allowed me to leave. Our gang was sort of dissipating, and I came back to Saskatoon. I came back to Saskatoon because I grew up there. Regardless of all the dysfunctional crap that I had done and gone through, still felt safe. It felt home. My mom was there, even though I had no relationship with her. My brother was there, even though I had no relationship with them. But being in the same city brought a sense of comfort that I can't really describe. It's just home. That's the best thing I can say. The same day I arrived, I had cocaine back in my hand. I was down with another gang. I was rolling hard with this other gang now because I was bringing big city crime, big city stuff to Saskatoon. I was working with, you know, kids, and I moved up again in my gang. Years passed. My addiction continued to fester. Yeah, I was still able to maintain this 40 beer a day habit. Most people, just interacting with me, you wouldn't know that I was drinking or drunk. And I survived. Somewhere along the way, I met this wonderful lady who doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs. She's got 3 wonderful kids, you know. I met her at this sleazy little bar that I used to sell crack cocaine out of. She just happened to wander in with her mom to have a drink in the lounge, and She hooked up with me, lucky her. But I spent time with her, and she loved me, and I felt valued and cared about. I still didn't recognize it though. I ended up in Emerge after getting a nosebleed. In my time as a gang member, I'd been kidnapped twice. The one time I was held for 2 days, tortured. I had burns up and down my back. I had logging chains wrapped around my neck. I was shot in the face. I was stabbed up 3 separate times. And none of that ever smartened me up, You'd think that I'd get the hint that this was bad for my health, right? But I didn't, until I got a nosebleed of all things. I remember my partner saying to me, Shane, and again, I don't know why she stuck with me, but she did. Your nose is bleeding. It's funny. It's weird. You should get that checked out. And I said, well, it's just nosebleed, whatever. I'm solid, right? Well, the day went, and I ended up bleeding out of everywhere that I could bleed out of. My insides were shutting down, and I passed out, woke up in the hospital. And when I woke up in the hospital, my kids were there with my partner, and it was the first thing I saw was them sobbing in the corner, and I was still trying to figure out what was going on, and this doctor was in there, and he was just telling me all this stuff. You're drinking yourself to death. This is what's happening. You're going to be dead by this time if you don't die on the street or do something else to yourself. But I stuck and I froze on that. You're going to be dead within the year. I said, no, that's bullshit. I'm not going to be dead within a year. Who the fuck are you? Who do you think you are to tell me I'm going to die? I'm looking at my partner, and all of a sudden I just felt valued. I felt like I mattered, that somebody gave a rat's ass about me, that what I was doing was impacting other people. And I knew I had to stop it. I suddenly felt like I had this girl and these kids that I wanted to live for. I didn't want this shit to happen to them, and I didn't want this shit to happen to me. And I started my journey in recovery. The first time I went straight from the hospital to detox, stayed in there for 5 days, and I thought, man, I'm on top of my game. I checked myself out. I bought a case of beer to celebrate. First 5 days I had been sober since I was 2 years old. And I bought that case of beer to celebrate because I still didn't get it. I didn't understand what addiction was. I didn't understand what was going on with me. I grew up with uncles that were alcoholics, aunts that were drug addicts, cousins that were dope fiends. I was never told that the substance was the problem for me. And once that started getting communicated to me, I was able to start working with my addictions, underlying mental health issues, and stuff, and I started getting involved, and I've been sober now for 6 or 7 years or something like that. But it's not an accomplishment to me anymore. That's my responsibility. When I started getting sober and I was able to give back, and it's like any addict, man. You sober up and you feel so guilty of all this shit that you take from the community, and you want to do something about it. You don't know how, but you want to give back. And to you guys, to most people, that sounds easy. Just volunteer, pick a place, go work a couple hours, go hand out food, do something. But to somebody who's never had an ounce to give back at all my whole life, it was completely foreign, and I didn't know how to volunteer. I didn't know what to do. I had gotten involved with Straight Up, who I now work for. They were a gang exit program in Saskatchewan. I got linked up with them, and I remember asking our executive director, what can I do to give back? How do I give back? He said, just pick something you like. And I said, I don't know. And he pointed at this guy that was coming in and out of our office. And he said, here, you know that guy? Why don't you jump on his campaign team? He's running to be mayor. I said, hold on, man. I've only ever done my income tax once in my life. I haven't even ever voted yet. I sure as hell am not going to volunteer for a political campaign. But that was that addict in me still, Anybody who was in a position of authority was bad. Judges, lawyers, doctors, anybody that was in positions of authority, because all I had heard my whole life was negative shit. You're bad, you're doing this wrong, you need to do this, you got to do that, don't do this. And, but what I knew really didn't get me very far, right? So I tried. I tried volunteering, and you know, that dude, he let me in on his camp. He's the only mayor I think that won with an ex-gang member beside him all the time through this campaign. But you know, he let me try, and he let me participate and be a part of his campaign. That led to me wanting to do more and reach out and do more, and then that addict attitude in me, you know, I didn't want to, that good feeling to quit. I wanted to keep riding that wave, right? And I kept giving back, and that's when I ran into the health authority, you know, and got involved with the health authority, and now sit on the provincial practitioners advisory committee. I had to step away from the provincial policy council. There was too much time involved, but I'm involved in all of these things. And I'm only involved because I know that my voice matters and that we are heard, and that the stuff that we're working on doesn't just go in her briefcase and get filed away. I know that Tracy's our advocate. I know that she's our extended voice from these committees. And we have this relationship going on with the people involved in our patient-centered care. It's not just the Adult Addictions Advisory Committee. It's all of Saskatoon's advisory committees. But and I think that's why it works for us. And that's how I got involved. So thanks for sticking my story out.
Can't make the clicker work. However, just to summarize, we do have a work plan for our committee. Last year we gave out little certificates of achievement of all the improvements that we achieved, and I have some of these at my table if anybody wants to grab one, just to kind of see some of the specific work that we do. Our advisors also extend themselves to participate in broader community activities such as the Saskatoon Community Action Alliance, which is trying to address the crisis with crystal meth that we have right now in Saskatoon. So we really appreciate advisor presence on there. We have some quotes. Oh, this is working. We have some quotes from our advisors, and just wanted to really emphasize that the participation of our advisors on our committee really feel that they are valued on our committee. And part of the one I like the best is the one where we have the drive to give back, that it's part of recovery. And so our participation of our advisors is so much appreciated. And our staff, actually, managers on the committee, we have people on the committee who are actually decision makers who can go back to programs and really initiate participation. I can't make this thing work, but just to summarize that appreciation, and to let people know that if you want to come and connect later. We do have some challenges. Recruitment, retention is a challenge. We just put a process in place to make sure people are having different aspects of their recovery happening while they're in the group, that we have a counselor now available to advisors so that we can keep our group cohesive and working together and making progress. So, and of course, stigma still continues to be a big challenge in our system overall, but thanks to our advisors, we're able to take on some pretty big system issues as well. So thank you for your time. Sorry we had to rush, but really appreciate it.